How are you doing? I apologize about the echo in here. It's only going to be a problem in the intro, so don't worry about it too much. Look, when I was a kid, my grandmother used to tell me that there's no money in trees. I think what she wanted to say was that money doesn't grow on trees. It's a pretty common expression. I'm sure you've heard it before. But either way, my grandmother was in fact wrong. There is a way to grow money on trees. And there is a way to save your household money from trees. And in this Farm Friday series, it's a weekly series I'm going to be doing from here on out, I'm going to be teaching you how to do exactly that, with a special focus on scaling it for traditional suburban households. So we're going to try and limit ourselves to 1/4 of an acre, and with a special emphasis on some of the chemistry, biology, and economics lessons that I've learned along the way. Today, in the first episode, I want to focus on what I think is one of the most overlooked cash crops, and that is the Japanese plum or loquat tree. This absolutely should be the backbone of any operation where you're trying to start your own like home farm, whether it be for food or to try and make a little bit of money on the upside. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to do that. First things you're going to need before we get started are obviously some small pots. Later on, you're going to have to scale up, but even something small like this, 1 gallon or like a 2 liter, 2.5 liter pot should do. You're going to need some dirt. We're going to go over dirt quality later on, and I plan on having a whole second episode be about like soil chemistry and stuff like that and how to manage that. And the third thing you're going to need is water, and not just for your trees, also for yourself. This is hot work, so let's go ahead and get started.
Now this is a Japanese plum tree. This one is one of mine. It's still young, about 7 to 8 years old, but it is of fruit-bearing age. You can find these things all over, in my experience, North and South America. Obviously, they're in Asia too. And you're going to look for them preferably that look like this. Now, this is a big one with lots of fruit on it. You can find them all over the place. People use them as ornamentals. They're in doctors' offices and just all kinds of places. Now, you can see here they have a pretty distinctive leaf shape and color, and this is what the leaves and the fruit look like. Now, these are going to be fruiting at the end of winter to early spring, which obviously is different times of year depending on your hemisphere. And when you find the fruit, you're going to pick them just like this. Just a quick, simple twist, right? Just like that. One after the other, go ahead and twist. And twist. And that's all there is to it. And you're going to want to gather yourself a nice bucket of this. So we have a little sample batch here. You're going to need something to pour the fruit into, probably a couple cups, and you're going to see why in a second. You're going to need your fruit, and this is a garment bag, a woman's garment bag for washing laundry. Now, this one, don't worry, has never been used for that. It's only been used ever for squeezing fruit. Now, we're going to put our fruit in here, and obviously, as you get a bigger operation, I have a juice press, and there's better ways to do this, but for now, when you're first starting out, this is what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to load your fruit into that garment bag, a nice good handful, about this amount, and you're just going to want to hand squeeze that right into your cup. I like to have something that's good to pour from, and again, you're going to see why in a second, but just wring it out real good. Make sure you get all the juice in there. And again, please make sure everything's super clean. Eventually, I'm going to do a video talking about pasteurization. If you're watching this in the future, this might already be on the channel somewhere, so go ahead and take a look. If not, that's something you're going to want to look into if you're going to want to keep this long term. But after you're done here, you're going to end up with a bag of pulp and seeds that looks something like this. Now, what we're doing here with the juice is, this stuff here, it's good. It's a little pulpy and dirty for my tastes. I wouldn't want to drink it as is. So what we're going to do is we're going to strain it. We're going to start with our second cup, and we're going to use a large mesh strainer. We're just going to put that right over the cup, just like that. And we're going to go ahead and pour the juice through, right into the second cup. Just like that. Perfect. Now, We're going to take our strainer, set it aside in that cup. We're going to go ahead and rinse the first cup back out. Now, the reason that I'm doing this in 2 steps is not really for a small batch like this. It's about larger batches, right? When you get larger batches, there's a lot of pulp in there and it starts to prevent the juice from flowing through. So you don't want to just go straight to the smallest strainer. So now that we have our first cup cleaned back out, we're going to take a smaller mesh strainer, a very, very fine mesh strainer, and we're going to go ahead and pour the juice back through, just like so. And now you have pulp-free, clean, fresh squeezed fruit juice. Now, again, I'm going to talk about pasteurization in another video. You can bottle this, but really I would just drink it fresh if you're not going to pasteurize it. And definitely don't sell it if you're not going to pasteurize it. Next, though, we're going to go ahead and look at that bag of pulp from earlier. Now, I like to lay it out on a smooth surface. Again, this is all what you do small scale, starting out. There are more efficient ways to do this when you have a larger scale, but for something small like this is totally fine. So we're going to lay out all of our pulp and our seeds here onto this map, and we are going to start separating them. Now, in this case, I'm just going to take the pulp and I'm going to toss it over here in one of the strainers that we set aside from earlier. Now, we're going to want to take care not to waste anything. We're separating, we're keeping the pulp, and we're going to keep the seeds, obviously, because those are going to become our trees. And when you are doing any sort of farming activity, any sort of homesteading, any sort of self-sustenance thing, the more you can save, the less you're going to have overhead, the less you're going to have to bring in supplies and materials from outside. So I'm going to show you how to make all of this stuff valuable. So now we have our separated seeds, our future trees, our future money, and I'm going to show you what to do with those in a minute, but first let's talk about the pulp and what we're going to do with this. So here we are in our garden area that we're going to be using for this video series, and I have a bunch of projects here that I'm going to be showing you, but what is relevant right now is the use of this pulp right here. Now, listen, some people will use stuff like this. It can be used to make wine or even liquor. I do have some agave plants, and we might talk about things like that in the future. But for right now, what's going to be most important to you when creating a small farm is compost, right? Fertilizer is expensive. I don't use any chemical fertilizer. Some people don't like it for health reasons. There are studies that show that fruits and vegetables grown with chemical fertilizer don't have as much nutritional value. I'm not here to speak on that. If chemical fertilizer works for you, use chemical fertilizer. But chemical fertilizer costs money. And the whole point of this is to make money or to save money. So in my opinion, whatever is going to do that most effectively is the way that we're going to go, right? This is one of my small compost barrels, right? It's literally just a 5-gallon pot and a lid that I have set aside. Now, you do have to watch out because compost barrels do attract wild pit bulls, and they can be dangerous. So, go ahead and just dump it in, right? Now, what's in here, right? Other than this fruit mash. Anything, any kitchen waste goes in here, and then over every layer of compost, of waste, I put just a small layer of dirt. I like to put a couple worms in there. It seems to help things break up faster. And after about a month of sitting like this, each thing of compost should be good to go. You can set it aside in a larger container, and I'm going to show you what to do with compost later on in the potting process. Again, don't let your dog get it. So, I had to cut part of it out because, as you can see, it's very bright out here. That's why we've moved into the shade. But basically what I've done is I've taken the compost that was ready to go, and I have mixed it 50-50 with dirt. And I've made it as much as I think that we're going to need for this small set of seeds that we're doing here. Now, when I do this, because I have to do it for such a large amount of trees every year, I take the compost and the dirt, and it's just regular fill dirt, by the way. Just any dirt will do. Literally any dirt will do, because the nutrients are coming from the compost. What I do is I take it and I put it in a cement mixer, and I mix like large quantities of it. But you don't have to do that. Just taking together 2 5-gallon buckets and pouring them into a 10-gallon bucket and stirring them around with a shovel, that'll do. So now we have here 12 pots. We've gone ahead and we have filled them all up using our dirt and compost mixture. Another thing I wanted to add for people who are interested in using chemical fertilizer, who don't care about like if it's organic or whatever, instead of using compost, if you don't want to wait for it, because it takes a long time to save up enough compost, to be totally honest with you, mostly instead of compost I use cow manure, but a lot of people don't have access to cows, right? So another thing you can do is use Miracle-Gro potting soil, right? And I did that in the first crop. I still do it on things that are not going to be eaten or sold as food, like flowers that I grow for people's landscaping and things like that. So what I've got going on here, I've taken, and this is like a whole crop of seeds for me. So I've taken and separated out the regular seeds, the vast majority of the ones that you're going to get, and the ones that are going to be good. Like, I know these are going to grow trees, right? And these are the ones that I'm going to make sure get planted first. You want something this size, right? This size and bigger. The rounder they are seems to be better. If you get ones that already have like this little split going, you know they're already trying to propagate. So go ahead and pick out seeds like that and make sure those are the ones that it's a priority for you to get into the ground. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a little divot in each pot of soil, and we're going to put our little seed in there, about 1 to 1.5 centimeters below the top of the soil. Maybe like a half of an inch, I think, would be the conversion. And we're going to go ahead and cover them up. Now, of course, you could put more than one seed per pot if you're tight up on pots. That is totally cool. I've done that many times. I've just found that it creates extra work for you later on, because if 2 or 3 seeds sprout in each pot, you have to go back then later, create more pots of soil and separate them out, because otherwise their roots will choke each other off and they won't grow as well. So now what we're doing is watering the plants. And anytime you plant anything, this is not limited to loquats, this is pretty much anything. Anytime you plant or transplant, you want to give the plants a good watering, and you want to do that regularly for at least a week afterward. Now, I find that if you just soak soil, especially if it's dry soil, it just kind of flows through and doesn't really do much good. It's much better to spend a little bit of time slowly misting it, let it get damp, and then let the water kind of sort its way through and so really absorb in, so that it stays in the soil for a while, and that soil stays nice and moist and hospitable for plants to grow in. So that is the rough gist of how you're going to get started. We'll come back in a later video and we'll check on those plants and see how they're doing. Those 12 in particular will be just our Farm Fridays crop of loquats, and we'll see what we can do with them. But I want to get down to brass tacks for a second and talk about why I think this plant is so valuable to grow at home. Okay, obviously you have the juice, right? We talked about that during the process, the harvesting of the fruit. That juice can be sold. There is a market for it. Like I said, you need to learn to pasteurize it and things like that before you do that. Don't just go selling people raw juice. It's not a good idea. You can end up causing problems. Most places, I don't want to speak for every nation and state in the US and municipality. Most places, if you're a small scale farmer or a home grower, you can sell food goods as long as you're making cash transactions without a whole lot of regulation, but you still want to be responsible with it, right? Other than that, obviously, the fruit pulp, there is use there as a composting agent. I get a significant amount of compost every year just from the fruit pulp from the loquats, right? Other than that, the loquat leaves actually can be used to make tea. I don't have any hanging right now, but I do have hold on, right up there, you can see some herbs like drying. You dry them out, you can sell them as tea. People drink them as tea. They have some medicinal use in certain traditional medicines. It's not particularly my thing, but if people want them, I'll sell them to them. The other thing is the trees themselves, right? We're going to take a look at some trees real quick. So these guys here, you can see there is a little bit of variety in size, but these are all the 1 year crop, right? All of these are the crop from last season. And people will buy these somewhat. I usually will sell small trees like this for about $25 a pot. That's, just sitting right here, close to like $2,000-3,000. Now here we have our 2-year-old trees. Let's see if you can get a better image of that. There's another row over there. And the 2-year-old trees typically vary. At this age, they'll be between maybe 3 to 6 feet tall, and they aren't bearing fruit at this stage, but they're not too far off, and they're still small enough that they're easy to transport. A lot of people like them this size. These you can typically get $75 for. I usually sell them for $50 because I like to try and undercut bigger growers. That way I give people a reason to come to me instead. And now walking through here, we have our older, more mature trees. Now these are still not completely mature trees, but these trees are anywhere from 3 to 4 years old, right? Going on, this will be their 5th year, right? Now they can be anywhere from, this guy, he's still probably about like 4 feet tall. Mostly they're 6 to 7 feet tall, like this guy, and all the way up to, this one is a very successful. He's a grower, and he is probably 10, 12 feet, 13 feet tall. That's like 3.5 meters, something. Anyway, these trees are where the real money's at. Now, it takes a long time, obviously, to get a tree this big. Like I said, you're going to be, for one of these real big ones, it's going to be at least 4 years. Now, these guys this year did produce their first fruit. Typically 4 to 5 years is when loquat trees start producing their first fruit. Now, you can speed that up a little bit. If you want to graft, you can take a graft from a mature tree and move it onto a younger tree. And by doing that, you can cause that younger tree to start having fruiting branches earlier. But as a general rule of thumb, if you just let them do their thing, you're looking at about 4 years to 5 years before they start fruiting. Now, these large trees, they are big, they're heavy to transport, but there is a market for them too, because some people want trees that are going to produce fruit next year. And while these guys this year in their first year didn't make a whole lot of fruit, next year they're going to make plenty. And a tree like this, I've seen them going certain places for like 200, 225 US. These ones here, I would sell for like 125 to 150. So that about sums it. Those are loquat trees. I think they're great. I think that you should grow them. And like I said, we're going to keep up with them and see how they do throughout the season and throughout this series. You know, this is an interesting thing. I really, truly think you should plant along with me. This is kind of like a Minecraft Let's Play, but instead it's real life, right? So we'll keep going on with this, and I'll show you some other good crops and some other strategies and techniques to grow a lot in a small amount of space and without spending much money. So I'll see you next week. I will have other programs going on this channel. I'm not going to do daily uploads like I did when I was younger. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with 3 times a week, and I'm going to have 3 distinct series, all of which have their own release days. Obviously, for this one, it's going to be Fridays. So if you're just interested in that, I'll see you next Friday. And if not, I'll see you in the next upload, which should be in a day or 2. I'm thinking Sunday, although the schedule is not nailed down yet. Peace.